Put your red shirt on and a brown coat too. Everybody's joining the crew. We got just one ring, let we rule them all. Hope people remember your house. Get your Uru feathers and your Middle guns. A sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Usually when still it will get you to come. To the big tank. To the big tank. The Rocky Mountain Big Tank.
Hi, I'm Guy.
Hi, I'm Troy.
And this is Geek Tank.
Unsupervised again sized podcast.
So we are going to do I think we're going to be doing a new thing starting the next, and there's Brent, and he's Brent. Yay. Oh, Brent, I have been on Thingiverse all day. I have downloaded 4,000 spaceships.
And leave the entire audience in confusion as to what just happened.
So, for those who are not Brent or Troy, I now have a 3D printer. You can actually kind of see it right here, right there, right there. There it is.
If you're looking, if you're listening, then you have to just imagine it.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, you're just imagining it. Mm-hmm. But now that I have a 3D printer and it's a resin printer, of course, the first thing I'm going to do is print tiny starships. That is naturally where we are. Mm-hmm. And so I discovered Thingiverse, which is a website where people put up 3D models specifically for printing. And I have been just there going, well, that ship wasn't ever made in Attack Wing. And that one wasn't made in Attack Wing either. Well, there you go. And I'm just downloading ships left and right. I am all about this plan.
You imagine the brainstorming meeting that they went through to name Thingiverse. Someone's like, what are we going to call our company? How about Universe of Things? No, that's too long. Let's make it shorter. How about Thing Universe? No, even shorter. Thingiverse? Perfect.
That's it. That's what we want.
We don't want people to use too much time saying the name of our company.
He has an entire 256 gig SD card for his SDL storage. Luckily, I have a 6 terabyte external or a 6 terabyte secondary drive and a 2 terabyte main drive, specifically because I knew this was going to happen. So
this is where I would make a joke about terabyte, but I'm not going to. So sure. I have 1 terabyter.
Yeah, that's all you got. It's a 1 terabyte.
That's all I need.
That's all. Sometimes that's all you need. It's just 1 terabyte.
So we're changing our format slightly. We will still be airing on Thursdays. It's just
we'll be airing on the side of caution.
On the caution, because we'll be pre-recording, and you can bet we'll put in just as much editing with that as we do now.
We promise.
So it's we're adjusting to adapt to our cruise schedule, and hopefully we will now have a Geek Tank show every Thursday, in addition to some Thursdays being the role-playing game. I'm guessing they would air, and we will we'll release the show earlier on Thursday, so that way, if for some reason you want to watch both on the same day, then you'd have the option of watching it before or after the Star Trek show.
Right.
Star Trek RPG.
The primary reason for this is that, as you can tell, we're unsupervised yet again. But it was better for Chelsea to join us if she could join us at 9 in the morning. Which we were like, well, but she's asleep right now. So we can't really just drag her on here. She'd be like,
well, it's either she'll be asleep or we'll be asleep at 9 in the morning. So,
right. Depends on which way you look at it.
It'll be funnier for us to be asleep.
Yeah. But we want to keep including her. So the best thought we had was we'll record the show a week ahead, and then Troy and I, on the off weeks that we're not playing, Troy and I will hang out in the
chat
room and chat with you all. So even though we're broadcasting, we'll still be chatting, and so
yeah. So that's the plan.
So you'll still be able to join us and stuff like that. It's just that instead of us responding directly, it's going to be us chatting over here in the chat room.
Mm-hmm. So This is definitely on. Did you? I'm sorry, I'm not in the RPG game. Did you guys RPG yet? That was last Thursday, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. So
We
our
did.
first show of the year was an RPG of Trek.
Yes, our first show was Trek RPG.
Again, appropriate.
It seems to fit really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we did. That was cool. And let's see what it was. It was an interesting game. Brent was involved in that game.
Cool.
Mostly was just a fight in a transporter room. Oh, there's that. But, you know, it's a thing. So, okay. So today's show is about symbols and symbolism.
Logos, branding, all kinds of fun stuff with that.
This started because Troy had posted an article in our little chat group that's only seen by the four of us in the chat group. And in the article, it was
Son of Jack Kirby. Are you talking about the Captain America one? Yeah. So it's the Son of Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby is one of the grandfathers of comic books, basically. I'll look up his name here real quick because I've totally forgotten Jack Kirby.
Kirby's son. We know Jack Kirby. We don't know his son.
Neil Kirby.
Okay.
So if you want to, and he's on Twitter. He said a lot of this on Twitter, and it was really long, so we're not going to read it all.
You'll have to paraphrase.
He was very distressed to see the Captain America shield prop and the Captain America costuming being co-opted, and he was very upset by that because, in his words, Captain America is the antithesis of the current president. So we try to typically avoid political stuff, but when political stuff crosses over into the geek realm so deeply, then I think it becomes fair game to go into that.
And there's a number of symbols that fit this. The Punisher symbol, the Punisher skull, is being used a lot.
Yes, it's been co-opted from everything from law enforcement to some soldiers, I believe, have been putting it on their clothing. And then, of course, other parties have been using it. And it has come up to where the creator of the Punisher had voiced how it is also, if they knew anything about the Punisher, would be completely against the people that are using it, and he does not represent law and order because he's a vigilante, and
Right.
he's the anti-hero. He's not supposed to be a hero that you look up to, and so that's become a problem. And there's actually two things that have come up from that one. Since Disney now owns Marvel, Disney is being, I don't know if you can't really pressure Disney, so it's more like people are begging Disney to come down stricter on their copyright laws and sue anyone that is making money, because you could make a shirt of anything Marvel and wear it, but once you start selling it, then you've crossed over that copyright line. And so they're strongly suggesting that any websites that are selling anything that's not specifically going to Marvel, to crack down on that. And then in addition to that, the other thing that's been recommended, or that's being pushed for, is some artists and some authors are suggesting to Marvel that they need to just retire the character, the Punisher, and not continue making any new stuff with him. Which I don't know the names of them, but I know that some of the people have worked actually as artists and writers on the Punisher comic book series. So it's to me, that's kind of given in. I kind of like the idea better of fighting it and suing them. But I can see the idea of retiring it, because I think the Punisher is a neat storyline and character, and I even did a Punisher costume for Halloween, and I have a Punisher T-shirt, but I'm not going to wear it because I don't want to be mistaken for one of the other groups that's wearing it for the wrong reasons.
And that there's a lot of that I think is part of what we're talking about when we talk about symbolism. I mean, I think about this a lot with specifically Antifa, because Antifa's symbol is Antifa, the word A-N-T-I-F-A. That's their symbol. And I think people are co-opting it and running off with it. and doing bad things in their name, and they've co-opted the symbol. Now you don't want to be part of BLM or Antifa. It instantly makes you anti-cop, not pro equal rights. You know what I mean? Like they've got a specific message they were working on, and people co-opted that symbol. And now people are blaming them for what these co-opters did to the symbol. And it's the same thing. You don't want to wear the Punisher shirt because it's been co-opted. You don't want to say that you are anti-BLM or anti-equal rights or whatever it is that the systems are, these co-opters are taking when they take these symbols. They take the meaning away too. Mm-hmm. And that's something that really fascinates me and disturbs me. I mean, symbolism is important. I always wear communicators, for example.
Yeah. So what can you imagine? Well, Paramount, well, not just Paramount, CBS would not stand for any of their stuff being co-ops. That would be a battle that people wouldn't want to get into. But
that's
if someone, it's also be really bizarre if a negative group wanted to use the symbol, since Star Trek is so much not
that. To fit.
So.
And I agree. But I'm also kind of thinking about this, and I was like, well, to some degree, though, I can kind of understand what's kind of going down with this. It's sort of, I can kind of see that they're co-opting these symbols, which is ruining the symbol. Mm-hmm. If they took the Star Trek, which of course, naturally, you're right, it wouldn't be, but if they took the Star Trek Delta and used it to represent something,
more likely would be the Klingon symbol, since Klingons are the proud warrior race.
Right. So let's say that in the Klingon trifoil and go and use it for implementing some heinous act or whatever. And it would be one of those things. It would be like, well, from that point forward, that symbol is rebranded. And I think people don't realize how easy it is to rebrand a symbol, and how difficult it is to maintain a symbol. And
it's not even symbols, but when the tragedy happened several years ago, all of a sudden, just the clothing trench coats had a negative connotation to it.
I had a trench coat at the time.
Me as well.
And I liked my trench coat.
I gave mine to Alex's little sister because I was outgrowing it, for one thing.
Yeah, there's that.
But yeah, it's a fashion that I think's neat, but
we can't wear it.
You don't want to be put in a box.
Well, and there's the symbol of the Confederate flag. You and I are both Southerners, and so we both understand that there's a deep, deep history behind that flag. But it's a symbol. And that's the thing, is that symbol got co-opted. And now it means slavery. That has nothing to do with what its original purpose was. It has nothing to do with what it was designed for. It was co-opted. The symbol was taken away. And that's
none of my family openly flew anything like that, but that's also, I wasn't in Texas. I was in Kentucky, where drew the line. But what's funny with that is I did
closer to the Mason-Dixon line than I
was. I was. So there's a lot more controversy on both sides for me.
Right.
What was funny though is I had a really good friend who was a person of color, and he invited me over to his place, and he had the flag hanging on his wall, and I was like, "What?" And it was because of how ironic he did it, because he was into that type of humor of the irony of it, and
but it still meant the same thing to him.
Well, he was making fun of it was more complicated than that, but he was trying to turn it around on the people who were using it to stand against people of color. So but it has become a symbol that even if you don't agree with all of the ideas of that culture, but you still, for whatever reason, want to kind of fly the flag, you get lumped into everyone else because that's what it has become to mean. And you can't make it mean something to other people.
Well, and I have been moving away from a symbol that I have used all of my life too. From a very early age, I was a big fan of Harlock, right?
Oh yeah.
And Harlock has, of course, the skull and crossbones as his symbol. And I have for years, and years and years and years, used that as my signature, little skull and crossbones. But it became a symbol of online piracy at one point in time. And during the late 90s and the early 2000s, people were flying that as a piracy thing, like, hey, we're fighting against the big corporations by giving you Windows for free. Pirate, 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 pirate. And I was like, eh. And people were misinterpreting my beloved skull and crossbones as meaning that I was into pirating software, which wasn't really that wasn't a platform I wanted to get onto. Regardless of whether I thought their point was good or not, it got me into that fight without needing to. I didn't need to get into that. I didn't want to get into that fight. It wasn't a fight I wanted to fight. So it doesn't matter whether I agreed or disagreed. It was still something I didn't want to do. And so I had to, I kept the symbol like simplified so that nobody really knew what it meant. And I didn't tell people what it meant. And then recently I have decided that I really like the idea of using my Hanko, which is what the Chinese would call a chop. The Japanese used one very similar. And, and there's a difference when the military flies the Jolly Roger. Because, the Jolly Roger has been on various very important military things. The Nimitz flew that in one of their air wings, which was a very famous air wing squadron. That was a difficult thing for me to say. But that was on the tails of their Tomcats, specifically on their Tomcats. And a well-known and very specifically identifiable thing. So I find that the military uses it a different way.
Well, it's hard to look at a Tomcat and see the Jolly Rogers and think, oh, they're clearly for online software piracy. Whereas seeing an artist stick it on their thing, it's a lot easier.
It's making a statement. It's making a statement that I don't know if I want to make.
Right.
But I certainly didn't want to unintentionally make it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If I was going to make the statement, I wanted to decide to make the statement. So I had actually had that symbol co-opted. Now I like using and this has nothing to do with it, but I'm using the chop because it's, I still had it. You have to use that stamp for official documents in Japan. I still had it. I don't have any official documents to sign for in Japan. So I was like, right. So now I'm like, I'll just co-op my own chop, so to speak. It's my signature. It's unique. Mm-hmm. It was made for me. It's mine. So there you go.
Why not?
And it represents something that is more me, which is my time spent in Japan. So I did modify it with little skull and crossbones on either side so that you could still make the connection to it, but they're very small and they're not actual skull and crossbones. It's the circle X that I usually did.
But again, it's by accidentally giving the wrong impression related to symbolism logos and like the letters that for acronyms. I think I used that wrong. Anagrams or acronyms? Which one am I looking for? Like NASA.
Oh, NASA is an acronym.
An acronym is what I'm looking for. So I was originally starting a sword fighting type school, and I was coming up with names, and I thought Swords of Colorado, and that's SOC. And my brother's like, don't do that. I'm like, why? He's like, because SOC is famous for Sons of the Confederacy. I'm like, I had no idea because that's not this group I run with, and right. I don't do deep history digging like my brother does. So that would have been a bad choice of names to go for in that case.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am part of the Sons of the American Revolution, and I probably am part of the Sons of the Confederacy. And I know I could apply for.
So you're sore?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. I know all the people who fought the Civil War, And I hate to say this, but all of them were gray.
I remember your skull and crossbone when I went through the transition because it looked like a little guy, because it looked like his arms and legs and then his head. So it's like, why is there a little happy guy as your symbol?
Right. Well, and that's what I kind of, oh, that's all right. That's exactly what I meant to call it, was a happy guy. Yeah.
So we're in this situation now where the Punisher's skull symbol is been co-opted, and the other thing with the Captain America, from what I understand, is there were shirts printed with the president in Captain America's uniform with his shield and then some logo. So that was clearly using their IP, and so that's the people selling that shirt are the ones who could be in trouble with the copyright laws. But I don't know if you could hide behind saying it was done as a parody, because that there's some amount of leeway there.
Maybe. I don't know if parody laws would allow. I don't think parody laws allow us to do
merchandise.
Well, no, they don't allow it. I feel kind of like parody laws are, first of all, they're vague. So, I mean, obviously, you could probably pull that and not have a problem with that at all. But I think that the thing about it is, I feel like the spirit of parody laws is that it should be humorous, and I don't think that that's humorous. But there's no law that says that it has to be humorous,
right? Since humor is subjective.
Yeah. So yeah. But I feel like that was the concept. The idea was to make it humorous. I feel like this light's really bright. Oh, there we go. That's much better. So
you had mentioned something else earlier when we were planning this out, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I might have to.
I was talking about all of the symbols that we use. That things are symbols without.
Oh, I remember what it was. Items and objects becoming symbol.
Well, like the Constitution is a symbol. And you can co-opt the Constitution. And I say that because there are things where they become a symbolism. A part of it becomes a symbol, and it becomes compressed down into a concept or a design, and then we co-opt it. Second Amendment is a very good example of that. It was originally designed as a concept to say that we were not going to have a standing military, we were going to have only militias, yada, yada, yada. And it was co-opted later on. It was an anachronism. It was a piece of legislation that was useless. But somebody took it and took that symbolism, and now it means you keep your weapons. Nobody can take your guns away because you've got to protect yourself against the government, which to some degree was part of what that was put in there for. And so it's still in the spirit of what Second Amendment was, but it's not really what it was in there for. So they co-opted it. And again, it's taking a symbol. First Amendment is constantly misused, and to some degree is being co-opted into something better, I think. The First Amendment right says that you have the freedom to say that your president's an idiot without the government coming in and marching you off to a gulag somewhere. That's all it protects you from. It doesn't protect you from speech in the real world. But there is,
you can't threaten somebody and say that the threat is protected under free speech. So they had to make exceptions for that too, and put those rules in, since people were trying to get away with that.
Right. Well, and really, honestly, we still have a lot of free speech capabilities right now. We could say anything we want on this show, and then people will just leave. We're not free. I mean, we could say we hate Brent a whole lot, and Brent will just hang up and not be here.
And I mean, we lost our one viewer.
We lost our viewer.
Good job, guy.
I know.
And you say, no, that's not the Brent I meant. I meant some other Brent. The one that's
right.
Well, we're also our platforms we're using, like YouTube and Facebook, that we're going out to. They're businesses. If we do something they don't like, if we get enough complaints, they can give us a warning. They can ban us. They can kick us off.
Brent's like, I'll stay.
That's because he's the good Brent.
Yeah, he's the good
one.
Brent.
He's not the one you were talking about.
The one with the goatee. The Brent with the goatee is the evil universe Brent.
Exactly.
Man. Oh, that's the best interaction we've gotten, because that was completely accidental. I did not mean to click the next one, but I did, so it's perfect. It worked perfectly.
That's what you get.
Oh yeah. Well, you don't taunt the electronics will get to you every time.
But you were talking about earlier too on our chat how guns themselves are now a symbol.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, because I was talking to Joe, who's the Denver police officer, and we were talking about, I said, well, how can we get back to a position where you would feel comfortable going into an elementary school without your gun? And he's like, why would I go into an elementary school without a gun? And I said, because that's terrifying. And he goes, well, that sounds like that's a problem with people understanding guns. And I don't know if I agree with him, but it did lead me to realize that the gun is a symbol of death. And I think that's part of one of the issues we're having with the gun debate. Some of us see it as a tool. I remember that from when I was in Texas. You just carried a gun on your hip because there might be a rattlesnake, or there might be a coyote, or there might be anything out there, or you're 10 minutes from the nearest police station. So, if somebody tried to jump you out here, you'd be dead before the cops ever got there, or whatever. Totally makes sense that it's just seen as a tool. You wear it on your hip, carry it around just in case you need it, and you hope nobody ever needs it. And, it all makes logical sense. The symbol there, though, is a hammer. For them, they see it as a hammer or a screwdriver or, a wrench. It's a tool. It's just another tool. You carry it around. Other people in this country see it as an image of death. It's something to kill somebody with. It only brings up images of bleeding people on the streets. The symbolism there is
not
different.
used enough to kill coyotes or snakes in the city. So right. Its primary use is for something that is terrifying, and it gets that image. I'm sure to coyote or snake guns are terrifying to them out there. And
you'd think so. They probably have little meetings about it.
They do.
They're probably trying. It's really probably coyotes and snakes that are trying to overturn the Second Amendment.
The little snake symbols, the snake saying, don't shoot at me instead of don't tread on me.
Don't tread on me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and there's a difference. So for Brent saying that that's something that he does. And honestly, I don't have a problem with Joe, with Brent, with people who've been in the military. They're not going to accidentally pull out their gun and blow your left hand off. You know what I mean? They're not going to go, hey, look at my gun. Isn't it cool? They're not going to do that. Nothing. They've got trigger discipline. They got muzzle discipline, that kind of stuff. And that's Brent saying exactly that. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. So to Brent, the gun symbol is a wrench. To other people in this country, the gun symbol is death. And I think that part of the reason why we're having a disconnect in this country is because people aren't addressing the symbolism. They're just addressing whether you should or should not have a gun. In other words, they're imposing their symbolism on the other side of the country instead of acquiescing, understanding, figuring out ways to handle the symbolism, maybe having a pro-gun billboards that are like, guns are nice and they're friendly, happy gun commercials. I don't know. I'm just coming up with, thought process, but working on changing the symbolism.
I think if there was more reassurance that the people who had them had the same discipline and training and control over their emotions that you expect from law enforcement and military, then there would not be the same fear, because there's enough people who don't have all of that, who just easily get a gun. And then you see videos or read stories about them, like the guy whose gun fell out of his holster in the Cracker Barrel and it went off and the bullet split into like 3 pieces and hit 3 different people. And luckily nobody died, but he managed to wound 3 people by accident by his gun falling out of his holster at a restaurant. And then you do occasionally see people who should know better, but accidents do happen. Like there's on YouTube a video of a police officer giving a demonstration on gun safety, and he accidentally shoots himself in the leg.
What?
So, and it's like that. You don't give a demonstration by doing what you shouldn't do. So
right. He's saying the right to bear arms means he gets a tactical nuke.
No, I want weaponized chickenpox or smallpox.
Really, all I want's an A10. I mean, I don't know why nobody will just give me an A10 Warthog.
I'll get you some A1 though if you want.
Well, there you go. I don't like A1 as much as I like. Well,
a good steak shouldn't need it.
Yeah, right. Right.
And then I'll segue into, I made some amazing steaks last night with rosemary, garlic. What else did I use? Pepper, salt, sage,
parsley, and sage, and thyme.
I saved time by not using thyme.
Oh, okay.
So butter, the secret ingredient's butter.
Secret ingredient to everything's butter. It's because we're Southerners.
Mm-hmm.
Did you pan fry those?
Oh yeah, you sear it. You cauterize your meat, so that way the blood stays inside of it when you cook it.
Right.
So
yeah, well, I mean, and the truth of the matter is, my feeling is, I could carry a chainsaw around with me all the time too, and leave it running on my back, and that's reasonable. But if it accidentally cuts somebody and slices them in half,
right,
it would be like, oh, that's a terrible accident. Well, yeah, but why were you carrying a chainsaw that was running?
Right. Or why did you leave it in the back seat with your baby?
Why didn't you leave it in the back seat?
Yeah.
Before you came into the party and started dancing on the dance floor. So sometimes I think guns don't have an appropriate place, because it's also back to something that I feel like Brent's hungry now. Well, see, that's the thing. I'm pan searing my steaks now, and they are so much better.
Oh yeah.
And we found that we can get like the little strip steaks, the ones that are about this big, for really not that much.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because you and I were growing up, man, steak and eggs was like special birthday dinner.
Well, Sizzler. If you're in our income bracket that we were as kids, Sizzler's a treat. Right. It's something that people I don't even know if they exist anymore now. Yeah,
no, we go to Outback now. That's about the best we've got.
Well, Outback's like 10 times better than Sizzler, so
that's true too.
So, but yeah, we're all over the place. This is what happens when Chelsea's not here. We jump from gun control to steaks like that. And snake control.
It's a mistake.
Could be. It's rare though.
That's rare. That's rare.
Interesting is how, depending on which side of the argument somebody is, how they've polarized it. Because I'm for people being trained better, and people are that on their side of that are, I'll just say pro-gun, automatically assume that means no guns for anybody. And I'm like, you're not understanding. Almost everybody I know, probably, well, not almost everybody, but quite a few people I know own guns. Every single one of them I trust with the gun because they've trained, they earned it. They
did something.
They didn't go to a vending machine and get it and just
like Brent is saying, he carries. Well, yeah, he's a Marine, so I don't have a problem with that. I got no issue with that at all. I know that somebody yelled at him a lot until he stopped pointing the barrel of a gun at me. You know what I mean? Somebody yelled at him a lot until he got his finger out of the trigger and put it next to the guard.
And
some-
ideally, there's a certain amount of psych tests that happen, and we know that they ask them, "Are you going to just go shoot people?" It's like, no.
Right.
Then the ones that say yes, then that's the ones you don't let have guns.
Right. The problem that I've got is that even it's no, you don't ever ban guns from anybody. Well, okay, that's fine, but then you're letting all the crazy people have guns.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, we shouldn't let crazy people have guns. Well, then you have to test them. No testing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how do you know whether the crazy people have guns or not?
Now, the only way we're going to see any change is if somehow there's a huge jump in protection, body armor, in the technology of it, where it becomes super effective and affordable for everybody in low income classes.
Yeah.
Because once you make them less effective, people are going to try to find some other way around the new body armor versus using the old weapons.
Yeah.
It's just like how armor was awesome until crossbows were invented.
Right. Everybody loved armor up until crossbows.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's yeah, and you and I think are both on the same page. We're into just better governance.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure that the people who have guns are qualified.
Yeah, make sure there should be free lessons.
Yep, my family has served in the military as well since the start of our country. Apparently, my family served in other militaries too, like Scotland's military. Some of them were out there with Robert the Bruce and painting their faces, apparently, and wearing kilts with no underwear. So there's that. That's in my family.
This is a bunch of job when you're trying to run and sword fight.
Yeah, well, there's the thing. It makes it easier to pee, though. I mean, there is that. That's at least nice, But there's that.
You don't have to take a potty break in the middle of a sword fight.
All right. You just pee on your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
It's also intimidating, But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. As a Texas kid, I also was taught to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And that depends. How much faith do you all have in my dad? He's the one that taught me to shoot. Now, you guys have heard me say muzzle discipline. You've heard me say trigger discipline. So you assume that I probably have muzzle discipline and trigger discipline. You assume that I'm probably not going to go, well, here's my gun. I'm just going to show you my gun like that. You assume that I don't hold my gun like this. Oh my God. Anyway.
I want to see Star Trek people use phasers like that.
That'd be so cool. Ooh, now that I have a 3D printer, I intend to make my Discovery phaser the way that I've always wanted to do it, where the front clicks out and turns so you can change the barrels. They've never shown it do that on Discovery, but it has 3 barrels, just like the cage phaser does. And so the cage phaser snapped out, turned, and snapped in for the different phasers.
I feel like I saw something Star Trek where the phaser rotated.
Right. I mean, that's the cage phasers. The cage phasers snapped out, turned, and snapped back in. So you'd get a different. It
feels like it was a more recent thing, like from next gen on, somewhere between that time frame. I have this vision of some Federation person hitting a button or doing something, and it just flipped the front of the barrel.
Oh, in the J.J. Abrams movies, the front turns.
That's what it was. That's what I'm remembering.
Yeah. The J.J. Abrams movies were the Kelvin universe. That flips from red to blue, which tells you whether it's on kill or not stun. But Star Trek phasers actually had multiple different settings. So it wasn't just kill or stun.
Mm-hmm.
Brent's got it too.
Yeah, I'd only seen it once, but I that's why it's just a vague memory.
I downloaded just now also the assault phaser, which is still one of my favorite phasers.
All phasers are assault phasers.
Right. Well, this one's
set to kill.
This one's a pretty nasty assault phaser. It's still one of my favorites. It's the one that has the forward slide and the clip that comes out, and that one's such a great phaser.
Put a bayonet on it, so it's excessive.
Yeah, that's the important part, but it's not a bayonet; it's a lightsaber. So there's that.
Yourself in the eye with a bat lift when you try to aim. Those
You
don't.
know, that's what we need to do is make some story where you have some big gun, and then it's like, fix bayonets, and we click it, and a little lightsaber goes out the front, because there would be something almost sillily stupid entertaining about that. You fix this little lightsaber at the front.
It'd be like the little knife lightsaber thingy that the guy had out of the movie Solo.
Right? We're easily entertained is what we are.
So what else is there on symbolism that we...
So symbolism, I guess what I'm trying to get to is that we, especially in this culture right now, today, in this day and age, the symbolism is critical because we don't have time anymore. We don't have the time to process all the data that's coming at us. So people are packing stuff down into a symbol and giving you the symbol, and that's supposed to unpack to the people that understand it to mean a thing, and that makes it easier for people to just transmit. This has really kind of made me think, because of the Star Trek episode Darmok, and that's the one where they Picard is, it's the children of Tama, the ones, Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. They're all talking in allegory, and I've been thinking a lot about that, and like what would cause the children of Tama to do that. How could you start that? And it's so funny that in 1992 or 91, when that episode came out, we were like, how could you possibly do that? Today, it's just memes. And they're talking in memes. And you don't realize it until you start doing the things. Like if I sat here and said, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. You instantly see the dog sitting in the burning room. That's the meme that I'm referring to, right? And I'm transmitting to you the meme. So you could see a situation where, the aliens land on the planet and they all walk out and they're like, well, we're all going to take over your planet now. And I look at you and I go, this is fine. This is fine. This is fine. And, to the aliens, they're like, so you're willing to accept this? But in reality, I'm conveying to you the dog sitting in the burning room, which is, we've got nothing. I don't know. We're screwed. We're just screwed, and that's kind of an interesting thing. And I didn't actually quite grasp how again, where you're sitting there going, gosh, some writer in this, was like really on it in Star Trek.
My kids, particularly one of the twins, will often show a picture and then do his own meme, like, when you think you're hungry, but this happens. And
Right.
It's like, and what's funnier is when he doesn't show you a picture and he just says the thing, and you have to envision your own punchline.
Right.
And you have to, wait, I don't understand what you're saying because you didn't give me everything. And it is like that.
My kid will do that too.
When the walls fell, it's like, but you got to say the rest of it. I don't know what you're saying.
Right. Shaka, when the walls fell.
Speaking of,
his eyes opened, and you're like, okay, you're just not. No, these are just words, people.
The symbolism is reminding me of a quote in the Avengers, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it was when Captain America is told by Coulson to put on the uniform, and Captain America is like, the uniform, isn't that old-fashioned? Or it's like outdated or old-fashioned. I can't remember what he said, but then Coulson says, well, maybe a little old-fashioned is what we need right now, referring to the symbolism of the uniform that Captain America is wearing. And its symbols have power, and it's rough when people try to make that. They try to steal it and make it their own, and write on the coattails of that and sort of twist it.
I feel like we as a culture are unaware of the power of these symbols. I feel like we don't quite understand how powerful they are. Yeah, as someone who went through marketing classes and things like that, one of the things that we've done is we specifically did symbolism in ours. We've got our Geek Tank logo, everything like that. We put it on our jerseys. Our jerseys are green. We've even thought about having to change our logo because somebody started to co-opt our symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They started to believe that we were some kind of gun-toting
tank-loving
militaristic militia thing because we had a tank on our logo, right? Mm-hmm. And so they were hitting us with some hardcore leftist propaganda, which was funny because we're actually kind of politically left. So that didn't actually go anywhere. So
it took quite a while to figure out what was happening because it seemed as once again like saying the walls fell. We're like, what?
Right. We didn't even know what they're. So it's kind of one of those things you have to be careful what the symbolism means. Mm-hmm. Personally, I'm a major supporter of the military. I'm a major supporter of that. So I didn't have a problem with tank. But
I appreciate it on two levels because my dad was an M1 Abrams tank mechanic in the Army,
right?
And I love puns, and so instead of think tank, we're geek tank.
Right. I mean, really, honestly, you and I both travel the same path, and that is, we both have extensive military families, and we both are very, very honored and of the military work and what our military personnel have done in our families and stuff like that. So neither you nor I had a single problem with the tank thing.
Right.
Chelsea, on the other hand, she doesn't have yes, Tyler, but she doesn't have
the connection,
the family history, the family, the growing up in a military house, that kind of stuff.
Her parents weren't, were they?
No. Her parents were actors. And though Tyler is military, and that's totally cool, it's not the same. You're not in it from the very beginning. You don't, you don't grow up with guns in the house. You don't grow up at 5 years old being told.
Although Chelsea is pretty familiar with weapons.
Yes. Well, and I mean, though I'm not a gun person, I wouldn't call myself woefully unarmed.
No, you're a gun pla.
I'm a gun pla.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think I won't pla.
Well, how close did you ever get to joining the military, if at all?
Very, very, very close. I actually went to the recruiter and sat down and talked to them.
Right after high school?
Yeah, right after high school. And it just, I had a feeling that I would never be able to do the things that I wanted to do in the military.
Very likely true.
Yeah. I mean, cause like I talked to them about being an officer and I talked to them about that kind of thing. And the truth is, and now with hindsight, especially with James, I don't think I would have ever done that. I would have probably done 4 years. I would have served on a ship somewhere. It would have been interesting and fun, and I would have been extraordinarily irritated by it. And I probably would have worked in a metal shop, cutting pieces of metal on aircraft or whatever. And then come back and gone, well, I don't want to do that ever again. And it would have, now at least, I sort of have a nostalgia for it. Mm-hmm. Whereas then I think that would have burned me out. So I don't know.
I went through ROTC in college, and that was a lot of fun. And I was really serious about it, but the only options they had that looked even remotely interesting to me, because they give you a list of like, pick one of these and we'll pay for your college. And the only one that looked interesting was psychology, which was a 6-year course that they wanted me to do in 4 years. And I knew I was not that smart, that I'd be able to pull that off. I knew that I would get horrible grades and everything would suck.
And crash it. Yeah.
And crash and burn. And at the time, it wasn't so much the military specifically, but I was more interested in like the CIA or the FBI. But I had talked to someone in the FBI and they had said the military was a really good route to go through to get there, because you earn a lot of points by being through it, especially if you do MP and then get into CID type stuff. And so I had a plan, but it sort of fell apart piece by piece until it was like, no, this isn't going to work for me. But the ROTC was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I was in Civil Air Patrol for a while too. Swivel chair patrol.
They eat the best.
Yep. So that wasn't where I wanted to go. I really knew I wanted to be Navy. I mean, I knew I was Navy from the very get-go.
That's because you're
airplanes and ships. How could possibly there be anything wrong with that? I mean, you know, that's always been the thing. I've never been a real tank guy. I'm an airplane and ship guy.
They don't fly.
They don't fly. Well, I mean, I guess they could.
Hover tanks.
Hover tanks would be cool. Have you ever seen anybody airdrop a tank? That's kind of fun too. So Brent's saying he knew at 10 he was going into the military thanks to the Air Force Academy. You know, it seems like you're like, I was going to go into the Air Force. That's why I went into the Marines. It's like, I don't know what that says about either branch of the service, but it sounds like a lot of really fun inter service rivalry, which I could get behind. I love inter service rivalry.
And speaking of symbolism, the military for most people is a good symbol. It's just, I think over time it's kind of taken a slight turn just because of its misuse, but it's not the military itself. It's more of how it's pointed and fired.
Yeah, I think we learned a lesson. Vietnam taught us a very hard lesson about blaming
the land war in Asia.
Yeah, don't get in a land war with Asia, but blaming the soldiers for the politics. And I feel like we got a very hard lesson there that we had to learn, and that was a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, soldiers were coming back and they were being shunned, they were being abused, they were being kicked around. That's not cool.
Mm-mm.
And I think we learned that, and we got there. It just took some time. So. That's, I mean, because I think you're right now. I mean, here now today, we respect our soldiers. We respect the people who served, and we sometimes don't really particularly care for what they served in. We may not have agreed with the war in Iraq. We may not have agreed with the war in Kosovo. We may not have, you know what I mean? The conflicts we may not have agreed with, but at least we're never going to say a soldier is or isn't good because of the service that, you know, we learned that lesson. See, V is Navy too. Go Navy. There you go. See, V and I are going to sit here and just be the Navy block over here.
Okay.
Just stare pointedly at Brent, I guess. I don't know.
Well, when you're into space as one of your main fascinations, Navy naturally makes sense because that's what would be space exploration, not Air Force.
Well, it's like, you know, our friend Dan, not B Dan, but the other Dan, is a lieutenant commander right now, and that's literally what he did. And now he's
Lieutenant Dan.
He's what?
He's Lieutenant Dan.
He's Lieutenant Dan, Lieutenant Commander Dan. He was lieutenant at one point in time, but he's now operations officer on a ship, and he routinely goes onto the bridge with his Star Trek robe on when he's got like night shift and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's so cool. And of course, now that he's a lieutenant commander, I think he just retired. Anyway, when he was lieutenant commander, his stripes on his, because he was wearing Spock's robe, so the stripes somewhat, you know, they were almost accurate.
Yeah. So one of our viewers brought up something interesting, that the pay should reflect the respect that soldiers get, and something must have happened with the budget between when my dad was in the Army and now, because as what they call an Army brat, dependent of a military family, I remember overseas getting excellent like healthcare, medical treatment, dental treatment, really, really good stuff available. And I remember the family being taken really good care of. And I hear stories from peers who had gone into the military about like just their nightmare experiences with the military's medical profession and stuff. So something must have happened for it to have like gone downhill at some point.
I like that one of our viewers says that they grew up in the Bay Area in the 60s, and so they instead joined the SCA. Which, that's fair. That's totally fair. That's the wonderful, nice thing about being an American, is you can choose to or choose not to. That's up to you. But we didn't do it the midpoint.
We forgot to
our sponsors.
We didn't show their symbols.
Their sponsors are watching. So
their symbols and their logos.
Speaking of symbols and logos, Geek Tank is sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, Shiny Garden, and your mom. I'll just leave that up there. I'll leave the ticker running.
Might as
well. That's actually kind of important because these are all the things that these are good people. And Geekway Homes, I believe, just got one of our viewers a home. I think they just closed on that, so that's exciting.
Nice.
Speaking of,
since one of our viewers brought up SCA, it reminded me of the story of I studied in Germany, studied abroad language for about a month, and while over there, one of the other students, she had a button pop off her pants, and she was like, "Well, now I've got to buy a new pair of pants." I'm like, "Why don't you just sew it on?" And she's like, "I don't know how to sew." I was like, "Give it to me," because I brought a sewing kit. And so I sewed the button on and gave it back to her. And then her roommate had, she's like, "Hey, look, my friend fixed my pants for me." And her roommate said, "Well, is he gay or is he in the SCA?" Because apparently if you're a guy and you know how to sew, you have to fall into one of those two categories.
I was neither of those, but I did have a grandmother who had a fabric shop.
Well, I'm a LARPer, which is close to
SCA. LARPing was the closest I ever got. Although now I think you'd probably say cosplayer too.
Yeah, cosplayer to a degree.
Because like us cosplayers, or the cosplay, I say us cosplayers, I only wear Starfleet uniforms.
And I would say that I'm like, what's the word? Ally. I'm gay ally. So,
right. Well,
I'm kind of in between.
Cosplayer ally too.
Yeah. Well, no, I hate cosplayers unless they're gay.
Cosplayers suck. We
only gay cosplayers. That's
right.
I don't know where I'm going with this. It's not going to end up funny though. So,
well, we'll edit it out in post. We haven't said that yet this show, so I had to at least once. So,
okay.
In the Navy, do.
Now you've tied it all together.
Yep, there we go. Brent wasn't in the Navy, so that doesn't count on him.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to make all of these threads tie together, and instead I'm weaving a.
You're getting further and further away.
Yeah,
you're pulling the string on the sweater.
I'm just gonna have to start bobbing.
Mm-hmm.
So
next Thursday will be a pre-recorded show, as all Thursday shows will be from here until scheduling changes.
Yep. So once again, for those of you who are joining us late, from this point forward, for at least the near foreseeable future, we'll be pre-recording. We'll be pre-recording our shows and then playing them Thursday night, so that Chelsea can join us, because she's generally sleeping at this time or going to work.
Because she's got to wake up in like 5 hours to make the donuts.
Right, she's got to make the donuts. So because of that, we'll be doing our show pre-recorded. But Troy and I will try to haunt the
message boards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the big words.
So that way, if people want to comment, we can make our bad comments and jokey comments right back.
Yeah.
So
that'll work. So you guys can continue to join us, and we will continue to entertain you, or hopefully maybe not entertain you. Well, I guess it depends. I mean, we could be entertaining you by you going, "Ooh, they really crashed that show."
Mm-hmm. Chelsea really let EA have it that time.
Right. That's a thing. Something about what you said and me reading the comment in the room, I read like wined women, and I was like, what does that mean. Anyway, I'm just having issues.
You are.
I think I'm burning into the. I really want to go play it over here at the.
Yeah, you want to go make little plastic ships.
I want to make the plastic spaceships.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those of you who were not here at the top of the show, you can kind of see it. It's right here. That's my new 3D printer, sitting over there in the light box. So I now have the ability to print all of the ships that are not, in fact, because that's going to be my rule. I'm not going to print things that you can buy from WizKids or whatever. I'm going to print the ships that are weird and bizarre. And
we've got to support our businesses, our local.
Yeah, because why else would I? I mean, I've got to go to Kieran Games and I got to get more ships. This is the way it goes. Anyway, we all have our required rules. It's a thing. I hope Kieran Games is doing okay. I mean, I know that none of us have gone to conventions, and I know that was part of it, a part of the deal. You know, that was his primary income. So, hope he's doing okay out there.
Yeah, I need to go through all the little Hero Clicks because I recently found out that they made a Squirrel Girl Hero Clicks figure.
Oh yeah,
would be really fun to have. But like all Hero Clicks figures, I'm going to have to repaint it because the machines do a horrible job painting them.
Well, yeah. I guess that's kind of a given. Let's see. I was looking. We were talking about. We're going to go over a little, but that's okay.
Clearly,
I was talking about Hero Forge. You were talking about Hero Forge, and so I think you should I think you should buy that character that you were talking about, and then I'll go on ahead and modify it for you.
Yeah, this is just the hair. And
Kieran Games is doing well. We have a report.
Nice.
That the Kieran Games is doing well, which is good because you should support him. KieranGames.net.
So I actually want to make myself, now that I found out that we can print Charlie Parker's saxophone, I'd like to either do a miniature, what is it, 25 millimeter, 30 millimeter? I can't remember now off the top of my head. Millimeter saxophone, so I can customize a miniature to be me, or actually just go ahead and make me as a miniature with a saxophone.
I think making us as miniatures would be entertaining.
Well, I want them for Zombicide. So when we play Zombicide, we can have our play ourselves. So,
right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Although, hey, generally speaking, I don't play myself in games, like specifically. That's never been really a big drive for me. So
right, but if all the players are playing themselves, it would make sense for you to play yourself.
Of course it would.
So
I'm just saying I just generally don't. So it's going to be one of those.
Well, then you get to come up with you'd have obviously a bow skill, because you got to come up with your skill tree for Zombicide. So as you level up, you have to pick from the skill tree.
Print me with a Yumi.
Absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Or me, you. You, me, you.
You, me, you. Me, you, I think, was a vampire.
Seems like it.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you all for watching. I would say click like and subscribe, but I'm not in the habit of that, so I don't know where I would even
click like and subscribe.
There you go. You covered it. I read a thing where someone suggested that should be our new goodbyes. Whenever you leave a room or you're separating from a friend, you just don't forget to like and subscribe and then leave.
Oh, it was good. It was good hanging out with you tonight, Troy. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you later. Bye. Yeah, it probably would be fun. It's like
use it on a date.
Right.
Date night.
It's nice going out with you tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It actually might be kind of funny. Okay, guys. That's all the time we really should be having because we really probably shouldn't be allowed to do any more. So, I've been Guy.
I've been Troy.
And this is Geek Tank.